Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I am Ashley, and in today's video I'm going to be talking to you guys about pros and cons, 3 of each, when caring for infants. I filmed this video and I rewatched it and I was like, I sound like I hate babies, which is not the case. I just prefer, I'm pregnant right now, I just prefer the older kids. I like interacting with them more. I've cared for infants at one time and I've cared for toddlers at one time, and I just prefer the toddlers. But like as an infant teacher, no. You would not catch me in the infant room. So the first pro is that you'll have them for the years to come. So if you think about it, if you enroll an infant in your program, you're gonna have them for a lot of years. So you have them for 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, and if their birthday's late, you might have them when they're 5. So when it comes to your work with them, like your employment, you're gonna have them for years to come. Versus enrolling a older child and in a year they start school and you have to, re-advertise and refill that spot. Another pro is that it's easy to transition and they learn faster. So my son was 8 months old when I started home daycare, and because it is a mixed age group and I don't have an infant classroom separate from my toddler classroom, everybody's together. Anytime he saw me teaching the older kids things, he grasped on a lot quicker. He knew his alphabet at a really young age, like recognizing the letters, the numbers. If I can find videos, I'll show you guys.
Mommy, faster, there's so faster.
Okay, what's that one?
G, B, Z, N.
He was doing sign language. He was doing so much because he was just looking at what I was doing with the older kids. So they learn a lot faster. And when it comes to the transitioning part, it's easy to transition them because they see like my schedule. This is aside from academics, like my schedule with the older ones. So whenever they're down to 1 nap a day, they finish their lunch, they throw their stuff away, the infants, and they'll go ahead and they'll lay down for nap time. You get what I'm saying? So they're gonna transition easier because they are in your program at such a young age, and they're gonna start watching and absorbing and mimicking, and they're just easier to transition when they start as an infant. And then another pro is that it's less prep. So for infants that are under 1, typically their main focus is hitting those milestones. So learning how to sit, learning how to eat, learning how to hold their fork, learning how to, be in the high chair, get changed, learning how to walk, sometimes say words, like those things you don't need a lot of prep for. Now, if you guys purchase my in-home daycare curriculum, there's a lot more prep. You have to have a curriculum. You're gonna wanna print flashcards, print activities, and do things with your older kids. Whereas infants, it's more so like, okay, let's see what we're gonna work on today, and it's not as much prep, if that makes any sense. Also, infants, typically, they're not eating big meals and stuff like that. The parents in my program provide me with baby food. I don't do any providing of food for infants. I do it for the older ones. So like the breakfast, lunch, and snacks that I do provide is for the older kids. And for the infants, the parents provide the food and the formula and the breast milk. So I don't have to prep that either as well. So that's a pro to me because everything is already, given to me, and all I gotta do is administer or give them the food and stuff like that. Now we're gonna get into the cons, and the first con is that you need a lot of equipment that takes up a lot of space. So for infants, typically you need a high chair, you're gonna need a pack and play. Sometimes you might, depending on your regulations, you might need a swing or a rocker to be able to have them somewhere. I used to have like the boppy seats that are on the floor with like a little tray. You would need some of those, and all of those things take space. Now, as home daycare providers, again, we don't have an infant room, or we don't have this massive area that we can just, bust out all of the infant stuff, and it takes up a lot of space. Once I have an infant, it's so crazy because I've had infants and I'll have like the pack and play, the swing, and then maybe like a rocker or a bouncer, and then a high chair. And once the baby has, outgrown all of that and I condense that, my space feels so much bigger. It's so crazy. So it's a con only because our spaces are smaller and you need a lot of equipment. With toddlers, you don't need any of that. You can just put that away. The toddlers, they use cots that get stacked. They don't need high chairs. They use chairs that also get stacked. So it doesn't take up a lot of space, and it's just a little bit easier with toddlers. So the con is that you need a lot of equipment. Another thing that is a con is training them can be hard, because if a parent is not doing the same thing that you're doing with the infant in your program, it's going to be harder for you to break a specific habit or train them. So I've had a baby that, you know, wants to be carried all day. I'll tell mom and dad, hey, when you're home, if you ever have an opportunity, let the baby, you know, not be in your arms. They'll say yes, and if they don't do it, it's not going to translate in daycare and your job's not going to be easier. It's just harder to train infants if mom and dad are not on the same boat as home. If they're on the same boat as you, it might be a little bit easy, but it is really, really, really hard to get parents that are on the same page as you when it comes to training babies to get out of specific habits. And then the last con is that it's a huge responsibility. It says learning allergies, teaching them to eat, the teasing phase, the crying phase, as far as like not getting what they want or wanting things done a specific way, learning to walk and falls from walking. Like when you have an infant, they're gonna go through all of those things, obviously depending on how many months old the baby is when they start with you, but babies can start as early as 6 weeks. So I keep that in mind, and you have to worry about their position when they're sleeping. You have to worry about, again, when they're walking, them falling if they're with older peers. You have to worry about the allergy phase. I always tell parents to try foods at home and then bring them to daycare if they're not breaking out at home, because as a daycare provider in a home, if something happens, I gotta pack up all my kids or call an ambulance and do all these things to get the baby to the hospital, whereas I'm not saying it's okay to happen at home, but it's easier for the parent to be able to take the baby to the hospital, if that makes any sense. So they're just all of those little things that you got to keep in mind, and I feel like they're very delicate, and I honestly feel like infants should be home until 1 year old. I feel like it's the best time to be at home with your baby, but I do understand that people do have to work. But again, as a con, it's just a really, really, really big responsibility. So I hope that didn't sound negative, but I personally prefer older children. That's just my cup of tea. But that basically completes today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you guys have not already, and I will see you guys in my next video.